So we are live. Good evening, everybody. Evening, Dolly.
Good evening to you,
Welcome. I'm so glad we get to
everyone.
do this after our disturbance last week. So
Exactly.
I
You know what
just
they say, you can't keep a good man down.
no, no, we can't keep the message away from everybody.
Yeah.
So I'd just like to welcome everybody. Today is our fourth episode of Women as Legacy Builders. We started off with living in your purpose, and then our second one was building a financial legacy. The third one was growing in your career. And tonight we have Dolly, who's going to speak about taking up your space. Dolly and I are alumni of UCT. I haven't seen her since varsity days, and I won't say how many years, but it's so great to have you
Yeah.
here. And I look forward to the conversation we'll have. So I'll let Dolly introduce herself and her organization as well.
Thank you so much. I am incredibly elated, to be here. And you're absolutely right. After so many years,
Yes.
at UCT, those were fantastic and fun times. But yeah, reality has kicked in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yes, I am Dolly, and I'm the founder and CEO of the organization, an NGO called Phenominal African Woman. Um, yeah, so essentially what we do there is we celebrate young women, not even young women, I think women in general who are gems, really, who are doing incredible things, in their spaces, whether be it academically or in their communities. I mean, I think there's a lot of noise around people celebrating people who are in the public spaces, in the public eye.
Yeah.
You really have diamonds in the rough. We've got gems out there, who are really moving the needle in their own respective spaces. And so then what we do in our organization is really to find those gems and to cultivate them and to give them the marketing I think that they deserve to basically propel them so other people can actually see them to grow their businesses as well. And like I mentioned, academically as well. Yeah, so in a nutshell,
Awesome.
that's who I represent and who I am.
And how special it must be to be called a gem when the world is just celebrating all the known people. And I think that's just so amazing. So
Mm.
tonight, I just thought we are going to chat about your story and how you decided it's going to be your calling to help women take up their spaces. So where did it all
Mhm.
start?
Sure. I mean, I think it started generally with me, as a woman, growing up, having a lot of challenges, but obviously being very much aware in terms of where it is that I actually wanted to be. And I think at a very young age, even in the midst of those challenges and barriers, I realized the fact that, I needed to maintain some level of focus and understand where it is that I'm headed to. That the challenges that were presented, to me or at me at that particular point in time did not necessarily define where it is that I wanted to be. And and I think throughout my journey as a teenager and as a young woman as well, there were a lot of people, naysayers, who told me that I wouldn't do certain things. I mean, typically getting into UCT, um,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it's not everybody that necessarily got into UCT.
Yeah.
And I remember having this conversation with my mom, and she said to me, "Do you not want to apply for other universities?" And I said, "No, I want to apply for
Okay.
one university." I think it's that kind of determination because I knew that no matter the challenges, based on the background, society, or whatever the case may be, I had to maintain some level of focus. And then when I realized the fact that that should definitely be my disposition, I can actually achieve anything that I want to. I thought to myself, there's actually a young woman out there. There's a woman in general out there who's probably given up on themselves, who doesn't believe that they can achieve their dreams because they look at their current situation and their circumstances and they write themselves off. And I made it my personal mandate to then say, I'm actually exemplary of that. There's nothing special about me. There, of course, certain qualities that I'd had to put in place, like hard work, certain work ethic to make sure I actually get there. And therefore, I really, really am an avid believer, and I've got this conviction that indeed we can achieve anything that we want to achieve. Really not about where we come from, our families, where, you know, the background, the creed, etc., and all of those things. If you really set yourself up to it and you put your mind to it, you can definitely achieve what you want to. And that becomes a core part of me and my purpose, up until, as you know, even doing my MBA against all odds,
Yes, yes.
and yeah, because I thought to myself, and I used to say, I'm going to do my MBA. And then naysayers once again would be like, but how are you going to do your MBA when you've got work, when you've got a family and all of those things?
Yeah.
Because, it's quite taxing, the MBA environment as well. And the fact that, I mean, even now, there are not a lot of females in, the MBA classes as well. Those are some of the challenges we are presented with as well. And I said, I'll get in there. And
you will get in there.
yeah, so I got in there. So I've then made it my personal mantra to really encourage women out there to say, no matter what the situation may look like right now, that should definitely not define your future in terms of where you see yourself. So I really am passionate about that.
Awesome. So in this series, you're the first South African woman that's been featured. So you're bringing that local flavor and also understanding more closely what the young women and the women in corporate have to go through. Some that do take up their space and some that don't. Would you be able to share with us some aspects of your background that helped you to say, you know what, I need to get out of here and I want to take up my space somewhere else?
No, absolutely. So, I love what you're saying, because I think we need to understand, the South African context when we're talking about some of these things. So when we're talking about, let's say, for instance, issues of diversity and inclusion, continues to be a key part of my work, by the way, as an HR manager. So I'm very passionate about transformation. Not only have I, lived or worked in a space where I felt like there were not necessarily opportunities that were created, for women to thrive in a corporate environment, but I really got a rude awakening in terms of how do I navigate around some of the realities that we find ourselves in within the South African landscape and that context. And really, just to give an example of that, I mean, we still have a very prevalent rate of, women being underrated in corporate spaces and not being recognized for the merit that they actually come with. It almost comes across as if women have to fight twice as hard, to get to particular positions or to earn certain, salaries in organizations. And so for me, I think what really helped me in terms of changing my disposition is understanding that when an opportunity is not necessarily there in a particular environment, it's not the end for you. If that opportunity is not there, what it actually means is that you need to go and knock on another door. Eventually, that door will definitely open, right? You create your own opportunity. The issues of diversity and inclusion that we face, as South Africa, I don't think that they are going to shift and change overnight. But it's really about you looking at yourself and saying, okay, fine, what are some of the qualities that are going to differentiate me as an individual to make sure that I open up opportunities for me where, there are doors that are closed. And I know that it almost seems easy to talk about that hypothetically, but it really starts with understanding where you are and where you actually want to be as a person. It requires a lot of tenacity. It requires a lot of hard work. And this is really something I also feel strongly about. I think it's easy for us as female to talk about the fact that, yes, we do want gender equality. I don't necessarily think that just because we are women, we are expecting to get things on a silver platter, so to say. I don't necessarily, think that's the case. I think what we're asking for is really just to get an equal slate in terms of the opportunities that are actually provided to us. But now here's the dichotomy. You can't ask for an equal opportunity and not bring, the prerequisites in terms of what is required for that opportunity.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so you can't not be ready when the opportunity arrives. So in a corporate space, for instance, if you want to grow and you want to be promoted, or navigate your way through, that corporate space, you need to understand what it will take, what qualifications or what experience do you actually require. And you need to almost prep yourself up to be able to have those fundamentals so that when that opportunity arises, you are ready. It's not
Yeah.
enough for us to say, I'm a female, so therefore you have to open this door for me. I deserve it, for the sake of
No.
equality. It's a nice song to sing. It's a necessary song to sing. But I think equally, we've got a great responsibility on making sure that we get into these platforms or spaces based on merit.
Yeah.
There should not be any level of ambiguity between you or even a male counterpart in that position when it comes to work ethic, when it comes to the minimum requirements of that position. So for me, I fight the fight of transformation and diversity and inclusion, but with the understanding of saying, let's create an opportunity for an equal slate. But I'm also not naive, where I speak to women and say to them, but you have to be ready for that opportunity.
Yeah.
It's really not about saying, here's something on a silver platter, Dolly, then take it. So, and I really think in my life it's really, really evident, to be honest. I mean, I've worked for a lot of multinational organizations,
Yeah.
and a lot of people do ask me, why did you leave this organization? And I think, Ilona, for me, the reality of the matter is that if I feel like I'm not served in a particular environment where I do meet the prerequisites, I go knock on another door where that
Yes.
environment is enabling,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So there's no need to stay in an environment that's not enabling for you. There's no need to stay in an environment where a door refuses, to be opened for you. I think you need to be that self-assured that if you know what you're bringing to the table, but that is not reciprocated in terms of an opportunity, then you need to go and find that elsewhere. And for me, that's the ultimate definition of taking up space in terms of understanding who you are, where are you headed to? And
Yeah.
if that opportunity is not provided for you and you know that you are ready for it, find another environment, find an alternative environment, because eventually there will be an environment that is enabling for
For
you,
you. Yeah.
that will be big enough to take on the space and who you are as a human being. Yeah.
Awesome. I love that you're speaking about this from your experience, but also as an HR manager. I mean, when I reflect on my experience as well, I also never saw the value in staying where I'm not growing as a person and my career is not going anyway. So I think that's very important. And it starts off, like you say, with knowing who you are and where you want to go. So that starting point of saying, and also knowing what you have to offer.
Absolutely.
I've found
Absolutely.
that women tend to undervalue what they bring to the table. I'm not sure if you've experienced that, but I find a lot of women. I mean, I used to also sit on interview panels, and you find that they undersell themselves. And you look at the profile, and you think of the other people you've interviewed, and you almost want to say, "Girl, you know."
Exactly. Take up your space.
Yes.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and I really just want to chip in there and say, I think you make a very valid point. What we really, I think, need to get over as women, and I think part of getting over that situation is realizing where it probably stems from. And I really just want to touch on that a little bit. As women, I think we have in South Africa, I mean, I don't want to speak for other, countries in the diaspora, but I think in South Africa, what has happened is that as women, if we speak up and we are assertive and we voice out what we believe or feel, we have, been seen to be aggressive. And
Yeah.
subconsciously, you want to tone yourself down, because somehow you're thinking that somebody may think that you are too aggressive, but in actual fact, it's actually not being aggressive. It's really knowing what you want. It's really coming from a place of being assertive without necessarily attacking. And as soon as we, become comfortable with who we are as people, if Dolly is a strong, personality that is quite assertive and knows what she wants. There's no need to be apologetic for that. That is who she is. She knows what she wants and she knows what she brings to the table,
Yes, very assured.
Apologize exactly for that. And you're, in actual fact, people open up, when you know what you want and the value that you bring to the table. Yes, people may get taken aback, but it's quite refreshing, I think, for people to basically see that angle and you coming from that element of saying, in actual fact, I know what I want and I know why I'm here. So I think that's
what I can deliver.
As women, that psychology we need to fix, because then if we're sitting in that emotional state of feeling almost like as victims as women and not necessarily know what we bring to the table, it's so difficult to penetrate and to ask for more if you yourself are not content with who you are. And I think that's the starting point. What do you want? What do you represent? And then once you've actually furnished that out and brought it out there, you can then ask for more based on what you want as a human being and based on your value.
Yeah, definitely. So Dolly, you spoke about naysayers that we get along the journey from childhood. And so when we speak about undoing those things, how do you keep yourself centered and bring yourself to a space where your voice is louder than the naysayers?
Very good question. So I think, okay, apart from the fact that I connect spiritually, right? I think that's where I definitely find my sanity, by connecting and really understanding who God says I am indeed is who I say I am. I think for me, that's a starting point than anything else, because everything else then for me flows from there. But respecting, obviously, not everybody has got those, religious beliefs. But I think you can't possibly center yourself if you do not know who you are. You need to be comfortable and content with who you are as a person before you can say that you're content. So otherwise, then that breeds some level of superficiality if you're saying that you're content, but inside you're fighting your own demons because you're not content with who you are as a person. Because then, Ilona, it doesn't matter who comes and who tries to get you to deviate from your core purpose or what you're trying to achieve. If you are so centered and you know what you want and who you are and you believe in what you want to become, there is no amount of challenge or barrier that can get between you or what you foresee becoming or who you are at that point in time. Nothing whatsoever. That should, in essence, just become noise, as a matter of fact. And you get to an understanding that people will always have an opinion about other people. But when you get to the level of maturity that says that I will not be bothered or moved by what people are saying that's contrary to where I want to be, you've actually found it, to be honest, and you'll achieve a great deal. So that level of confidence that's dictated by your inner self and your inner truth in terms of who you are as a human being, is able to almost to vindicate you from all of the naysayers. I mean, personally, I love naysayers. I don't want to lie. I absolutely appreciate naysayers in my life because it means I'm doing something right. I mean, where there's a lot of noise and people not, against what it is that I'm trying to do, it means that, okay, I'm doing something right somehow because it's attracting attention. You just need to make sure, obviously, that attention is in line with who you are and what it is that you want to be and not make it your key focal point. So you always have those. And I think the sooner we acquaint ourselves with the fact that naysayers will be there, but not to sit on there and almost be so emotional and so distraught with the fact that there are people that are against me. Look, everyone has got people that's not in their corner, but it's okay. You know where you are actually headed to.
Awesome. I really like that you touch on that. You need to know yourself and remind yourself that I know myself better than the naysayers. But absolutely, if you're running from yourself, then perhaps the naysayers get the best of you.
Exactly.
So we were chatting the other day about how even from high school level, these conversations are quite important. And I noticed that some of the work you do starts at that age. Do you have any insights from that stage.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm happy to share. I did mention that I'm doing obviously my MBA. And for those who may not know that acronym, Masters in Business Administration, you never want to take these things for granted. Ilona, I decided to venture in my research proposal to talk about the effects of teenage pregnancy to the socio-economical landscape, of South Africa. I think that is it's a very touchy-feely subject for me, because I know that it's an issue that is very prevalent, in our country.
Yeah.
And I do realize the fact that a lot of futures are cut short with women who are teenage mothers. Number one, because they stop believing in themselves. And number two, because the naysayers that you spoke about. I mean, once you become a teenage mom, people tell you that you'll never amount to anything and you're not actually getting anywhere and you're never gonna go anywhere. So as part of this research, then I was really, really quite moved because it meant that I needed to interact with these young women, because I do, a lot of, speaking engagements in schools as well. Okay. And so as part of that, I started speaking to these young women who are teenage, mothers, some of them pregnant, some of them not pregnant. And I got to hear their side of the story around how they're treated by society, around how they are rejected and they stigmatized, to say that that's it, they don't actually have a future. And it's quite painful for me because that is not true. So the fact that you gave birth as a teenager does not mean that, it is the end for you. And that's why then I decided to embark on this MBA, to really just understand the influences around that, but most importantly, to encourage them and to show them that, you know what, young women, it is possible to cross that barrier. In actual fact, you have a greater responsibility now that you're a mother to make sure that you actually succeed. Not only for yourself, but for the child, that you've actually born into the world. So that social ill for me has brought me in such a deep connection with these young women that are really, really feeling vulnerable because of what society has dictated who they are, what they are, or what they can never become. And therefore, I've really made it my life, purpose to make sure that I actually talk to them and show them the way. I use myself as an example. I show them and I say to them, my childhood or my upbringing was never that rosy. I kind of map out to them and I say to them, but look at me. And I'm by no means of measure saying that I've arrived. But all I'm saying is that I fought for what I believe in. And that means that it says, what, I'm in a challenge, yes, whether you're a teenage mother or whatever social ill or wicked problem you may be facing. But you need to see beyond that somehow, and people around you may not necessarily see beyond that. But you've got a responsibility as a human being to see beyond that particular challenge, because you can't expect other people to see beyond that if you don't see, beyond.
If you don't see it, yes.
If you don't see it, you can't have an expectation that people will believe in your dream if you don't believe in your dream first. So I'm greatly touched, I think, by young women who've got a lot of potential in the various societies and communities in which we live in. They've got incredible dreams, but they're stuck in this notion that says, nope, I'll never go anywhere because I carry this load and I carry this burden. And I think it's our responsibility, the ones that who have really triumphed, so to say, across those challenges. It's our responsibility to make sure that we go back and sort of like sensitize and educate these young women, to say to them, actually, it's not the end. It's really not the end. You can still be any single thing that you want to be. When people, when we grew up, people used to say, you can be anything you want to be. You can anything. I never used to understand that. I used to be like, really? What is that? Reality, I never used to understand it. But I think as I grew up with the tenacity and the perseverance of understanding where it is that I want to be. And by the way, I still have a lot of dreams for myself, and not only for myself, but for these other women out there. I want to take them along in my journey, hence Phenomenal African Woman, because I think this is not about me. It's really about building that legacy that you're talking about.
Yes, yes.
Our women and for our communities, to say that, you know what, it is absolutely possible. So I've made it my life's mission. It's what wakes me up in the morning. It's what goosebumps. So I every time I speak to them, I really am elated. You see the faces and you look at their eyes and you see so much hope. And then I get to understand that I have a greater responsibility beyond looking out for myself only.
Awesome. And I really want to touch on that in addition to being a wife, a mom, a corporate woman, your legacy and your impact stretches into the community. It is incredible because women are always already overwhelmed with just your home duties or your work duties. So I think that's really, really an amazing part. I just want to go on to the comments. We've got a few comments on our platforms. Polani comments on something you said earlier, that, oh yes, the opportunity must find you ready on the working hard and bringing your work ethic to the table. Malezi says that makes sense. We should understand that as women. I think the sentence is not complete, but I like that we in one person, your impact starts off with you understanding, who am I, where am I going, and how far do I want to stretch it? And you are one of those who have stepped up and said, busy as I am and stretched as I am, I forgot to say you're also a student.
Yes.
You are going to still go out there and start this organization for your passion.
Yeah.
So somebody else has said, you know, every now and again, they hear a woman say, we want space at the table. And it's so amazing that you have nailed it, that space at the table still requires work. It is just entry. That's really awesome. Thank you. So as we move on, I want to speak around a woman who feels that, okay, I'm listening to Dolly today and I recognize that I have listened to the naysayers for so long.
Yeah.
And perhaps I'm stuck in a rut. I'm stuck in this job that's not growing me as a person, and I have bills to pay. How do you build that bridge to say, I want to live a fulfilling life that has impact as well? Yeah.
Critical question, because I think a lot of people probably do feel that way. I want to tap onto and bridging onto that question. We see a lot of superficiality out there, right?
Yes.
There are a lot of people that, I mean, look, I don't necessarily think that we have all arrived. I think life is a journey. I was actually doing a talk the other day and they were asking me what success means to me. And said, quite frankly, I think that success is about taking the active step to get to your desired destination. It's not about the destination itself. It's not about arriving. But I absolutely respect a person that decides to take a decision to do something. We're not saying that it is going to succeed overnight, but the fact that you were able to embed in your mind that you're going to take a decision towards something, for me, that I would coin and term as success. And then just answering your question, I think, yes, a lot of people are living in this bubble that, I mean, it's tiring. I mean, I want to say this, but very politically correct. I mean, you know, when you go on Instagram, sometimes people's lives are perfect.
Yes.
People have arrived. You know, people's lives are just on point. And I sit back and I'm thinking, what about a person who's looking, right? The amount of pressure. And if you're not whole and centered in you, the amount of pressure that will do to you. And to answer your question, if you are feeling like you're in a position where you are stuck, yes, you probably want to navigate your way around, you know, your career, business-wise or whatever, and you're feeling stuck. No man is an island. You have to be able to identify the right people that you can actually talk to. There are people who are mentors and there are people who are coaches. When I found out the power and in finding a coach and in getting leadership, it really changed my disposition and my outlook. And this person may not necessarily be in the same fraternity as you, but you're looking for a person that's going to be very honest with you, and you need to be able to take that honesty. You need to be able to take that constructive criticism, right? Because this person is looking at you from another lens. So you need to find another person that will support you through that journey and really help you map out, okay, fine, you are here in A. How do you perhaps then move and navigate your way from A up until B? Because sometimes we only sit in our confined spaces and we really don't know who to talk to and where to move. And part of my role, I mean, I'm a mentor as well. I mentor a lot of people. I've realized the fact that most of my role as a mentor and even as a coach is to really guide people and to, in actual fact, get them to find solutions that they already know.
Yeah,
so maybe
exactly.
people already know solutions, you know, to challenges, but really just being that buffer to get that person to say, oh, actually, I think this is the solution. And once you find those credible people in your life that you can be honest to alone and say, you know what, I'm vulnerable. I feel like I'm not good enough. This is where I want to be. You need to be able to talk to somebody who you feel is credible, that's going to add value towards your journey. You cannot possibly navigate your way if you are feeling like you're not confident enough and you are walking the journey alone. You have to be able to find somebody that will help you and support you throughout that.
Awesome. I love that you say no man is an island. And really, if we're bringing it close to home, umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu. And, you know, we really need to put that in practice.
Yes, yeah. I love that. I want to comment on that. I think my mom is actually watching somewhere. I remember.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Mom.
I remember, you know, growing up, and my sisters are probably watching and they're like, yeah, she's right, you know. And growing up, I sort of like had this, you know, self-centered mentality at some point that said, you know, I will actually make it. You know, I don't need people around me. And I remember the one fundamental thing that my mom taught me, and mind you, I was a teenager, you know, when you're a teenager, you try to establish who you are.
You know, everything, yeah.
Everything is so right. And the one thing that I'll never forget that my mom said to me is exactly that, Ilona, that you can never, ever say that. You will always need somebody in your life. And ironically, as I grew up, I found that in actual fact, I relied on networks. I relied on people. I relied on, you know, to basically, you know, you want to talk to people that you trust about your ideas sometimes, you know, about your journeys and stuff like that, about your vulnerabilities. And therefore, you know, it's impractical to then say that you're going to be a loner and try and figure it out all on yourself. It doesn't work like that. And therefore, once we start relinquishing that pride of saying that we are self-centered and we can do it all alone and we don't need people, I promise you the universe will be able to reciprocate and do so many wonderful things in your life. So, and I think that that's how you probably then have to navigate around it. So I agree with you. That is a core value that we should never forget. Each and every one of us, whether you're male, whether you're female, for that matter.
Yes, exactly.
All of us should embed. Yeah.
We've got some comments. Wow, success is taking a step. And then Lungi says, success is taking active steps towards your desired destination. Powerful. Thank you. And I think it speaks to also the perfectionism trap that everything has to be in place in order for me to take that first step. I don't know if you have insights on that one.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a perfectionist. It's sad, actually. It is so sad. I've got a fantastic boss. She's a female boss who I consider as a mentor, by the way. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, she said something to me, and I think it was positive feedback that I decided to actually look into. And she said something phenomenal to me. She said to me, you know what, Dolly, you're too hard on yourself. You know, for me, everything has got to be like, you know, and she said, no, you need to understand what you can control and what you can't control. But just because at that point in time you feel like you're not able to control a certain element of your life does not mean that you should not move. So just because you are uncertain about something does not mean that you need to be stagnant. Make a move and then see where that actually takes you. The worst thing to do is to be stagnant and sit there and say, you know what, I'm never going to make it, or I'm uncertain. Try and see what. Try, you know. So the best thing to happen to you in actual fact, yes, is to succeed, but also equally the best thing to happen is to fail, because it means that you've decided to take an active step, you know. So it's this whole thing of wanting to be in control of everything is really a setup for failure, because you can't possibly know everything. Other things you get to know as you go through the journey. You pick up wisdom, you know, through the journey and that experience. But if you're not going to do anything, procrastinate, and you're going to be stagnant, it's a recipe for disaster, to be honest. I commend people that do take action and they fail whilst having taken action rather than not having taken action at all.
Yes, definitely. I've always been saying that we need to redefine our relationship with failure, because so there's some lessons and experiences you would have never ever had, or insights, if you hadn't tried. So I like that you've brought that in, because a lot of people will say, I'm so afraid to fail, and so I don't start, you know.
Sometimes there's a purpose to a detour, hey? And that's my outlook on life. I mean, so, at some point I used to be very critical about my detours. And right now I'm in a position where if things don't work out the way that I envision them, I choose to look at the brighter side of saying there's got to be a purpose to this detour. So it may take me longer than what I anticipated, but if I continue along the journey and discovering that actually, Dolly, you should not be going this way, but maybe this way, that for me is absolutely profound. So you need to be able to understand your detours, number one, where they're taking you. And if you need to pivot, and say, okay, fine, this is actually not working, whether it's in your career or business, you need to be able to have that level of realization that says, okay, fine, this is actually not working, but at least I tried. I know what works and it's not work. But you can't possibly know that if you haven't tried it or if you haven't taken an active step. Hence, I say for me, that is the ultimate and true definition of success. Do not let people, sell you this dream. You look at other people's lives and you look at their we appreciate it, yes, but it doesn't come easy. It absolutely does not come easy, right? For me, we are faced with so many challenges that we have gotten to a point. I love what you're saying about failure and having to redefine failure. I've gotten to a point where I place absolute respect to a person that will say to me, this is what I want to do, and how do I go about it? Or this is the step that I've actually taken. For me, you've been successful in that. Yeah.
So how does a woman who feels, or who's stuck in that trap of perfectionism, be it in the career space or even just personally, that they never venture anywhere because all the ducks need to be in a row before they experience anything?
Yeah. That's my life. I mean, I think when I started shedding off certain things and started letting certain things go, you need to be kind to yourself and understand that, things actually happen. And once you start having that mentality, of course, you want to have a great work ethic. And I always say this, I say it to my team, I say it to people that I encounter, the people that I actually mentor. First, for me, your work must speak for you, so that when you make a mistake, a person can say, Dolly, this was indeed a mistake, because I know ethic. I know your work, but if you are a person that consistently then falls onto that trap of making a mistake, it's a little bit, it's a little bit funny for me. But I think the illusion, the grand illusion of perfection for me is just that, it's just an illusion, right?
An illusion, yeah.
It's an illusion, and it applies across, whether it's in your career. And for me, the more I wanted to become a perfectionist in my career, do you know that that's the more that I failed?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The more I tried to be a perfectionist, because it almost seemed as if I was trying to control every single element, right? To a degree that I missed out on opportunities that were presented because I was so narrow-minded. I was so focused on, being this perfect person in this area, in this position, that when opportunities arised, I was not able to see them because I was focused on perfecting that one area. We're multi-talented, we've got a lot of gifts, and opportunities do come. You cannot possibly identify an opportunity if you are narrow-minded. If you are, if you've got blinkers in your dolly and you're saying, okay, fine, this is me, and this is it right here for me, you will miss other opportunities that may aid you. So I think that the first thing, Ilona, for me is understanding that perfectionism is just that. It's an illusion. Leave it alone. Not saying don't work hard, but being a perfectionist in everything, you're a control freak.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Actually, you just you're a control freak. Understand what your limitations are. Understand what your limitations are. Understand what you're good at. Yes, you do it very well, but also be kind to yourself and be very forgiving that when you do make a mistake, it's a mistake. It's
a
just
mistake. Yeah.
things do happen. And when people, like I said, understand your work ethic, they'll be like, okay, no, we do know her work ethic. She's made a mistake here. So it's really just not being about too hard on yourself. And you need to work on that psychology, and nobody else can help you out with
No
that.
one can do it.
Identifying. It has to start with you as an individual, like it did with me. And I found that opportunities opened up, when
you start to see them.
I got to see them.
Yeah.
I got to see opportunities. I'm in an interesting, stage in my career where opportunities indeed are opening up, and I'm not fixated on that one thing. So I'm quite versatile. I'm able to try different things, but obviously understanding what my limitations are, because I'm not that narrow-minded. Because I'm also saying, you know what, I'm not as perfect as they come, hey, and I need to be kind to myself and to be very forgiving. And I really do pray and hope that other people do take up that same disposition as well, without compromising the, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a client, I think it is in the month of June, and we were talking exactly about this perfectionism trap. And as we closed the session, one of the outcomes was that let's call it continuous improvement. Because perfect is this mysterious place that we don't ever arrive at. But if we continuously improve, then your ethic is improving and your output improves, but you're not sitting and waiting for perfect.
No, absolutely. It's what the world sells to us. Like I said to you, social media sells perfection. It's it's an illusion, to be honest. I like that terminology. It's continuous improvement, because as people, we continue to evolve.
We're growing,
growing from one element of our lives, one stage to another. So I absolutely love that. I'm probably going to steal it. But if you're going to look at somebody else's life and it projects perfection, and you're going to start critiquing yourself and saying, you know what, maybe I'm not so perfect, versus person, it's going to be a problem. So yes, I absolutely love that.
Yeah, I'm picking up a theme here. You speak a lot about being kind to yourself, and I think it stretches for any woman at any stage in their lives. You spoke about that sometimes things don't go well, and if you're not kind to yourself, perhaps you feel that I'm the worst person. Women tend to have that. I'm not the best mom, or whatever else comes in the way. Do you have any experience or insights around that?
I do. So as a matter of fact, I mean, something that's very close to my heart, that's related to my kids. So when I started doing my MBA, so I was actually obviously doing it while I was working, right? And I needed to be at varsity during the week. So I would literally rush, from work and be on campus at 5:30, for a lesson that finishes at 9:00.
At 9.
And this would happen, twice or thrice a week. But even then, coming back home, driving back from varsity at 9:00, there's syndicate assignments that needed to be submitted on weekends. I can see your face. You're like, yeah, I know this. of course. And on weekends, I needed to be on campus. And I can tell you that for that 2 years, I didn't spend a lot of time with my children. In the beginning, I really, really, beat myself up about it. And I felt so, so bad that I missed out on certain milestones that were important for them and to them. But I got to a point, and I want to be honest about the fact that I had to feel that emotion, right? Because the first step to recovery is feeling an emotion, right? In order for you to progress and heal from it, is to feel it. And I felt it, and I was really, really unkind to myself about that, because I thought to myself, I've chosen me over my children. The fact is that sometimes you're going to have to choose yourself actually over your children. And I think for me, this was that reality where I did choose to embark on this MBA. And when I think where I got my point of healing was to say, the reason why I'm actually doing this is not only for me, right? But it's also them, right? It's also going to benefit them as well, because I want them to have a proud parent who was able to run this NGO, still be a professional in corporate, still be a mom, but also still having to attend classes and do this MBA. I wanted them to look at that and say, wow, how did you do all of that? But beyond asking that question of saying, how, a lot of people, Ilona, ask me, how do you do this? How do you do this? I used to answer and I used to say, I don't know. I don't know. And I think the reason why I did not know is because I kept moving. I wasn't stagnant. I kept moving. So you have to keep on moving, because if you get stuck in a place of unforgiveness where you are feeling so sorry for yourself that you are stagnant, it's going to be a problem. You're never going to achieve anything. So whilst you're feeling sorry for yourself, please continue to move.
Continue moving.
Yes, because in that movement will come your liberation. In that movement, right, will come your progress. In that movement, there will definitely be light, beyond the tunnel. So, but there's certain things that you are unable to see if you are fixated in one place, because you feel so sorry for yourself that you are so crippled in this space that you are not able to see beyond that crippled state. But if you continue moving, even through the pain, I promise you'll get there and you'll thank yourself and you'll say, wow, it was a tough journey, but I made it. And then that's when you continue then to forgive yourself and be kind to yourself. And so that was for me a very crucial example. My kids are still here. In fact, they are so happy. They are the ones that are shouting, Mommy is the founder of Phenomenal African Woman. My mom has got an MBA, So had I stopped, venturing on that, they would have nothing to gloat about. So we need to understand what the motivation is, so that we don't get stuck in feeling very sorry for ourselves at that moment. So we need to move and not, be stagnant to a point where we're not able to make the right decisions to progress.
Awesome. We have a comment here from Khabo, who says you are such an inspiration. So let's pause and receive the compliment.
Thank you so
You've
much.
said something about how you started Phenomenal Woman of Africa.
Yes.
Please share more on that before you leave the platform. I feel like there's a lot of young women who need that now. And I just want to add that I'm sure there's women and men who would be interested, because we must acknowledge we've had quite a few gentlemen that have joined us in the series, and we need it. We need it.
I love it.
I
love it. I love it. I mean, so no, absolutely. Phenomenal African Woman is incredibly close to me, because I got this, what is this word where you are sitting? It's a moment of euphoria. I was sitting in class, and our professor was asking us to submit our proposals or our topics for our thesis. And I was like, I am going to write about unlearning path dependencies in organizations. I'm going to be so sophisticated. And I had this grand idea, and I went home and I had to be honest with myself, and I said, okay, Dolly, is this what you really want to do? And I remember thinking, no, actually, I want to venture in social entrepreneurship, and I want to talk about teenage pregnancy. And I think through that is what birthed Phenomenal African Woman, because I realized that there's so many challenges that women actually face that we can definitely provide solutions to if we allow ourselves to do so. And I love the fact that you're talking about men. So whilst Phenomenal African Woman represents men, yes, but most of the challenges that women do encounter to some degree do involve men. I mean, we talk about teenage pregnancy. We neglect talking to men about, you know, the effects of teenage pregnancy to a degree. Where we focus on women, but they're also part and parcel of this, you know, social ill. So I think it needs to be holistic in terms of the solutions that we do provide. And I think that's probably the next step, you know, of African women. Who knows, you know, in terms of into chatting to men as well. So yes.
You've just had that epiphany. Don't let it go.
Yes.
And you've said something. I know we have like 10 minutes to go, but you said something that I had a discussion with a fellow coach, and he was speaking about that in the next 10 years, we may face an imbalance where we've forgotten about the boys and the men. So I like that we start to think about growing society as a whole, you know, through women, for women, but also for men, because a balanced society grows together. We also have one comment that says, "Thank you so much for sharing this. I never thought going into NPO space would be as celebrated as doing a normal business." Wow. Have you had any questions around why not just a business, since you're a corporate woman?
Certainly, absolutely. I mean, I've had questions that I asked myself, you know, about why not business and not an NPO. But I think it has to be personal, to be honest. When we're talking about, I absolutely love, you know, the holistic topic that you have, you know, talking about women as legacy builders. For me, this NPO definitely fundamentally speaks to the legacy that I want to build, you know, for women, you know, and men, of course. But I really just want to change our societies as much as I can. I want to bring about social cohesion as best as I can, because I think that if there is that element of social cohesion, we can interact better together. And other things will come naturally, to be honest. I think our societies are broken, and we do need people that are going to be activists out there and find a social ill, or what they call a wicked problem, that they will actually address. Trust and believe that all of us have got gifts to be able to close some kind of gap that our societies are actually facing. And I'm not shunning business. Of course, you know, we venture into business, yes, because we're passionate about it. And of course, because we want to generate some profitability and income, that's important. But we need to realize, in embarking on that, we should not forget the fact that we are operating in communities and in societies. And therefore, somehow we need to be able to give back. So even if you're looking at profit and losses or balance sheets and ledgers and stuff like that, remember the communities in which you operate in, which is, I think, as equally as important as running a balance sheet, to be honest.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That's really key. And I am notorious for that in all the entrepreneurs that I support. I say you need to start to think about your social impact now. It doesn't start when you make the millions, but you can start now as you start your business or you start your NPO, to think about, even if you don't start anything separate from your career, if all of us thought of the impact in the communities in which we are in, then that's a big change in society. So now we're coming to the end of this. Where can people find your platforms so that they can interact and hopefully support you in this great cause?
Sure, absolutely. So, I would love for you guys to actually, you know, view the work that we're doing as Phenomenal African Woman. We do have a YouTube channel where I do post, you know, some of the interviews with some of these gems and diamonds in the rough that I find. It's called Phenominal African Woman with an FE. I like how people are like PH or phenomenal. I'm like, no, we're different like that.
It's female. Yeah.
So it's Phenomenal with an FE. You find us on YouTube. We're also on Instagram as Phenomenal African Woman as well. And really you'll get to engage with the content regarding, you know, women empowerment and sharing the stories of the women that we encounter. Yeah.
Awesome. I will also add it in the comments so that people can spell it correctly and find it.
Awesome.
One last comment: you offer people an opportunity to dream a new dream. Thanks, Dolly. This is from Zandi. I think I agree with her. You've really helped us share the message that it's never too late, that you are never not good enough. Just keep moving.
Absolutely.
Yes.
No stagnation, just keep moving.
No stagnation. I'm going to read the last comments. I'm juggling between the YouTube comments and the Facebook ones.
Oh,
One
shame.
says,
okay, yeah.
T says, thank you for touching on perfection. It has changed my mindset. We often, you know, like you say, we get stuck thinking about the perfect time, the perfect opportunity. So I really think, thank you for spending so much time highlighting that just because somebody's made it further than you have, it doesn't mean it's been perfect.
Absolutely. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Dolly, for allowing yourself to be mentored and coached along the way, and also then mentoring others and giving and continuing to grow. There's a lot of people who are looking up to you. I'm sure sometimes it's pressure, but we really appreciate that there's women who stand up and say, this is how you take up your space, open doors for other people, and also show them that take up your spaces.
Awesome. That's fantastic.
Thank you very much. Any closing from your side?
Thanks so much. I mean, I think this has been, I mean, when I do these talks, it's always an honor for me because I get to not only share my own personal experiences pertaining my journey, but I think it's important to remind people that you are more than where you actually see yourself. And I say this and I say this all the time. You need to be able to look at the bigger picture in your life. You need to be able to understand that there is no amount of barrier or limitation that can set you apart from you and your God-given destiny. You fight everything that you have to make sure that you get to where you want to be. It's not about the noisemakers. It's not about being a perfectionist, but it's about identifying who you are. It's about identifying where you want to be. And I promise you, I'm a testament, you will definitely make it. It may not take 24 hours or 48 hours or a year, but you being relentless and persevering will pay off. I'm a testament of that. So if you ever needed any motivation, just think of that lady with the blonde hair that said to you, there are no amount of barriers that can separate you between you and your God-given dreams. Remember, the fact that you're still alive speaks volumes on its own. It speaks volumes. The fact that you still wake up in the morning and you're breathing, you wake up and you say, okay, fine, why am I still alive? The minute you ask yourself that question, you get to motivate yourself and you get to understand, okay, fine, what step am I actually taking today? Because that is success, as we've mentioned.
Yes, taking those steps. Thank you very much.